Rock and roll. Look at
You
that.
can literally see the light.
I was gonna say I see your OnlyFans light in those shades, and I think it's fantastic. And how was spin class, Mr. LA?
It was so good. It's like you calling me Mr. LA, me looking at myself wearing glasses while I have a light in the reflection. I'm just like, who have I become?
Exactly who you want to be,
No,
right?
spin class was great. I just like, and I don't know if y'all are this way. It's like we all have like our addictions in a way, and
We were
like
just talking about addiction, actually,
Yeah.
so that's appropriate.
right. And I guess like I have this like weird feeling if I haven't worked out properly in like 2 to 3 days, then I get anxious about it, and like I just don't feel as good as I could. I'm like, I know I could feel better if I just like kill myself for an hour.
If you just go
Yeah,
get some of
for
those
sure.
endorphins going that don't come with, a prescription.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so
I get
it's
you
a good
100%.
and I'm
Well,
out
we
of
do want to say welcome, Brian Bogart, stand-up
Thanks so
comedian
much.
and actor. So happy to have you here. I'm
Good to be-
Haleigh,
Haleigh.
I'm Jonny.
It's
and this is
Jonny.
Brian,
so
and
good
this
to meet
is
y'all.
Johnny, Haleigh,
Haleigh.
Brian,
Ryan.
Day
Jerry.
of
Oh,
Fun.
Warren. All
We
right.
got- We
Oh
like
my gosh.
the
It's a
deer in
weird
headlights
intro,
look
yeah.
when people don't know what we're doing.
No, there's a
Sorry.
whole thing, and I feel bad because I was like, yeah, totally, I'm Brian, and then y'all were like doing a thing, and I'm like, oh my god,
No,
shut
it's
up,
all
Brian.
good.
No,
It
you're
sounded
totally
good.
fine. That's part of the fun for us.
Yeah.
It sounded with deer in the headlights kind of thing.
I had
Yeah.
that moment.
But we enjoy that. So we
for
appreciate
sure.
you playing along.
My cousin and I too. Y'all are siblings, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My cousin and I have a podcast, and it's called Guantanamo Bays because we're both Cuban, and it always opens like after a conversation, we go into a segue, and they're like, "Oh, welcome to the Guantanamo Bays podcast," and then at the same time, we go, "A Cuban cousin Kiki."
I love it. I have been looking at some of your clips that you have on Instagram. You guys have some
Yeah.
interesting topics of conversation. I do enjoy it.
That's funny. What caught your attention out of curiosity?
I do believe that you were reading some sort of I don't know if it was a text message or what it was.
It was like
from-
some smut. It was some gay literature that Julian brings.
Oh, it's
what's called a gay-
literature.
Yeah, you could call it that.
Literature. Okay.
But it was like this. Yeah, he'll bring a gay item of the week. That's what we call it. It's one of our segments, and it'll be a physical item and a news item. And so this physical item was from this book he read that was like about some real underground, like dark, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road kind of gay culture stuff. And it's like
Dark
this
web.
really explicit personal ad that like really makes you question like, should this be legal kind of thing? Like how far is too far for kink? And so, yeah.
I guess sometimes doesn't that just make you feel better that you're normal? Right?
Yeah, more
Like at
than
least
that.
you're not having to go chase these
Yeah.
kind of things in life. You're like, it's sure we'll deal with like kicking cigarettes and things like that. Those kind of addictions are like
No,
tame, right?
I chase a different dragon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That
it's
is not
it's
my-
the attention of the audience when you do stand up and acting. Would that be any part of the reasons we get into it?
Yeah, I'll say like the rush of performance and maybe the adoration of a crowd is like a factor in that whole thing. But also really when you feel like you nail it in the sense of accomplishment.
Mhm.
And when those things intertwine, that's like when it's at its best. And that really is, like that's a dragon right there. That's
Yeah.
my
Yeah, for sure.
whatever the toughest dragon type there was in Harry Potter. I remember a Rhodesian Ridgeback. I believe. No, that's a dog. It was like one of that's my
Sure, whichever one.
Uber dragon. Yeah, that's my Uber dragon.
It's a Hungarian horntail. I
Hungarian
believe.
horntail. Yeah.
If I can- If I can bring my nerd self out, but like I'm with the Norwegian Ridgeback too. Like totally good. That's a good breed too.
Yeah,
Right.
I appreciate that, and I feel bad as a Harry Potter fan that like I couldn't on command.
All of the Harry Potter
It's-
fans can send their hate mail to us at johnnyhaleydof@gmail.com. We will
And
read it
follow
out
at-
loud.
And follow at Brian.Bogart on Instagram and
Yes.
DM all your hate.
All the hate mail, please and thank you. We were happy to read it. It's
Right.
content for us. You're doing our job for us, and we appreciate you.
Yeah.
You do.
Thank you.
So can I be the pretentious asshole in the room and say Bogart any relation to Humphrey?
great grandfather.
Shut up. No.
No, I'm
I was
sorry.
gonna
I
say
can't. I can't
there's
back down now.
I was gonna say I want to know how that goes, but
No,
no,
you
I
think I'd
just
be
I
doing
had
this podcast if I was Humphrey Bogart? I'm just kidding.
yeah, right. You would not. You absolutely would not be.
People will
So
ask me, like any relation. I'm like, do you think I would be in this Trader Joe's? Or do you think I would be in this
I
Ralph's?
would be in the French Riviera right now. I would not be talking to you.
I'll be at the Gelsons in Monaco, like
Yes,
don't at
exactly.
me. Yeah.
I love it. So we do want to talk to you a little bit about your stand up and your acting. How did you get into performing? What's the thing that inspired you?
Yeah, it's funny. Like a buddy and I, who's also like an actor, I went to UT with him. He's in LA now, and we were talking about like some of the earliest, memories of acting that we ever had, and like really like the inception of like, wow, I think I want to be an actor. Was in first grade. There was a kind of like an original, really lame musical that's like a salute to TV, and it's like I Love Lucy and Cheers, and I auditioned for the
Mhm.
part of Ricky Ricardo, which makes sense because I'm Cuban, obviously. But I was like so young,
Obviously.
I didn't know I was Cuban, like so like that the fact that it was just like kind of meant to be, that Desi Arnaz is also cute. But like
It's
I
just
auditioned. Oh, what was that?
that's like, divine intervention in some ways, right?
I
Just let you
know.
know, guess what? This is what you're supposed to do. Go do it.
Later connecting the dots, I was like, "Oh my god, it was my destiny."
Right.
But
You've
I
got the right
auditioned.
last name and you had the right ethnicity. It's perfect.
Right, but also this last name is a double-edged sword because it can only lead to disappointment. Like there's the excitement of like, oh, Bogart is famous last name. Oh, well, at least it like sounds like a show busy name, but then they kind of expect you to be this like show busy guy, and then when you're just like this kind of straightforward comic, or like I'm not like Waka Waka Brian Bogart, like I'm not making silly, like I don't know, it's
You're
just not.
not vaudeville.
Right, right. Although my cousin and I together are extremely vaudevillian, and we are doing our first show at Upright Citizens Brigade tomorrow as the Guantanamo Bays. And so it's like a proof of concept show called a Spank, and if it goes well, so really excited about that.
Very cool. I mean, definitely want to hear more about that. Whatever you want to share about it.
Yeah,
This is a
Yeah.
first live sort of thing that you're doing.
yeah, yeah. We've done like a sketch that we wrote together. Kind of like as a just like as part of his musical improv, and I did stand up. So we've done like a variety show, a very low stakes variety show. And I've taken classes at UCB. He has two for musical improv. And then one day we went to a show. It was kind of disappointing. And we were like, we're better than those showrunners. So like I submitted the show. 2 months later, they're like, we want to give y'all a shot for a Spank. And so it's gonna be a variety show. I do stand up, we do the sketch, he does musical improv. We were gonna do it alongside this one play. The day of the Spank, which was last week, 30 minutes before going to the tech rehearsal, I get an email from UCB being like, our tech guy didn't show up. We have to cancel the show. And like
Oh,
we got
Oh,
other,
man.
our friends like who flew in early after Thanksgiving to attend for us.
oh
Like,
shit.
it's like our schedule's fucked with their schedule's fucked with
Yep.
the so the people who are doing the Spank with us, they're like, "Hey, we're actually staging it at in a friend's backyard. Would you guys still like to do your thing?" So we did it in a space, and like a bunch of UCP people were still there. And then UCB felt so bad they gave us an evening slot, which is now going to be tomorrow. They're like, can you do next Tuesday?" So, now we've had a chance to actually do it there. It killed. Like we loved how it went, and that we're just so thankful. Caroline Cotter's her name. I just have to shout her out for like letting us
Oh,
be.
absolutely.
Okay.
And really happy with how it went, and now we feel really tight and ready for. And then I'm hosting an open mic tonight, so I'll get to practice my set, for the show tomorrow. So it's like we feel really good about it. And
Just
I
super
wish you guys were
perfect
here.
timing.
Yeah, and I wish you guys were here to like watch it and hang out.
Right.
We would absolutely come over and watch it
I
and hang
know.
out.
I know you.
We would
So-
have such a great time. You and Johnny Ginger, like I would just make fun of you being daywalkers for,
For sure. Yeah.
only for about 5 minutes. I promise.
You know the distinction
Yeah.
too. You know the distinction between a pure ginger and a daywalker like us.
Oh man. Yeah. It comes with its perks.
Yeah.
It comes with its, yeah. You can handle the cold up here in the Dakotas better than some of us can.
Well, yeah, that's true.
You've got
For
that
sure.
Viking Norse blood in you. You can deal with it a little bit more.
Yeah. There's that German stubborn
Yeah,
redhead.
I do not. I look more like someone that the Vikings conquered.
Right? You
Yeah.
look like Conquest.
Yeah. I'm just meat. But
Right?
Well, very cool though that you have those things going on. That is,
thank
love
you,
that that's
Haley.
going well for you.
Yeah.
And we absolutely, tell us more about it. We would love to we would love to be there in person if we could. We're going
Yeah,
to
for
manifest
sure.
that from the universe, but until such time, we're happy to keep up with your progress via
Well,
Zoom here.
and if there's anything to like just take away for anyone listening who's like remotely interested in like not just, doing anything like this or understanding it better, how you could apply it to their own disciplines or their own careers or lives is like, it was just like kind of a natural next step of things. And it's like the slow burn, sometimes you do get lucky and you get noticed fast and you get plucked out. Or you could like create a lot of attention for yourself on social media because like you cracked the code there. And that's like never been my forte necessarily. So it's like,
Yeah.
I got to do a combination of like being somewhat active, just like so people know I exist and remember to book me. But then also
Mhm.
like, I'm more of a stage guy, so I'm more like want to wow people in person, so that like maybe someone will like cast me in something or like give me free reign to write a show, which like I have my pilot, and so it's like you gotta have your pitch deck ready, but you
Yep.
also like like this kind of started when I was like, okay, what theater in town you know, would I wanna work with? And I'm like, okay, UCB has sent a lot of people to SNL recently, and that seems like something I'd wanna do, so I'll take a class there. Gotta take levels 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, that takes time. And then after that, it's like you gotta pitch a show, which is like its own process, and you gotta wait. You like, hopefully they say
Yep.
yes.
Is
And
it as painful to do a pitch as I have heard it is a question.
and here's kind of so, like, yes, it always sucks, right? Whenever,
Okay, just
like
expect it to suck.
yeah, yeah, just expect
For sure.
everything that isn't the exact part you don't wanna do to suck, right? It's
Okay.
like, I get in here because, like I said, it's the rush of live performance or the rush of connecting and feeling like you really nailed it and pushing yourself and,
Mhm.
like, all that stuff, and that's great. But to, like, make money off of that or to have a career in that, you're gonna have to do a lot of shit you don't wanna do because that's, like, what business is, right? It's doing shit we don't wanna do to advance our own, like, socioeconomic situation, however you wanna define it. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's like there's a necessary part to that if you wanna, like, kind of be career successful, but, like, that's not everything to people, and so
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
people are okay, just
You gotta balance it, right? Like, follow the highest joy and also, do the taking care of business things that maybe are not quite as exciting.
and where I was lucky was that, kind of in a vacuum, we'd written a sketch together. I had we had pitched our, Guantanamo Bays as, like, a show or, like, to a screenwriting contest. And so we'd already had a proof of concept, so I was able to, like, copy and paste a lot of that into the UCB pitch, so it's not as painful because
Mhm.
I've, like, done the building blocks, right? I did all this stuff in a vacuum so that when, like, this opportunity kinda presents itself, I'm like, "Okay, thank God I don't have to start from scratch." So that
Yeah.
would have been a lot more painful. So, like, never stop writing. Like, if something comes
Yeah.
to your mind, I have a
Mhm.
Google Doc of just shit that, like, just the most random stream of consciousness. Some of it's
Yeah.
organized, some of it's not, but, like, as long as you're getting your thoughts
I
out.
have I have a house full of notebooks, and I have told my
Yeah.
sister, "This is my legacy that I am leaving, is that I don't know who I am leaving it to, but someone is going to have just mass amounts of notebooks full of my psychosis, and I
Yeah,
can't wait
totally.
for you to read it all."
For sure.
Yeah. Like, travel
Right.
journals are important to me. Whenever I travel, I always, like, keep a log, so I'm like, if nothing successful, like, quote, unquote, "successful" happens in my life, like, before I kick it, I'm just like, "Here you go. Here's, like, the crazy shit I did when
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
was, like, leaving." Yeah,
captain's log.
exactly. It's my captain's log, so that's never a bad legacy, no matter who you are.
I love
Yeah.
it.
For sure. Now, like back to writing and stuff like that. I noticed on your YouTube that you have a lot of stand up and you have a lot of sketch comedy.
Mhm.
What do
Yeah.
what do you prefer? What do you get out of each that you like? Because a lot of stand-ups don't resort to sketch comedy. A lot of sketch comics don't resort to stand-up.
I
So
know.
it's kind of interesting to find somebody that's kind of in the gray area of
And
doing
people
both.
are stupid and think that you can't do both or
Of
yeah.
course you can do both. It's
Mm.
just some people prefer to,
And some people are
put all their
purists. And
yeah,
there are great comedians who are purists and, like, not to I'm not saying this
mhm,
about anyone specific. I think sometimes too, maybe if you're a
Mhm.
stand-up and you're really good at stand-up, that doesn't mean, and it doesn't have to mean that you're a good actor or a good sketch
Yep.
writer, sketch actor, or anything like that. But if you're like kind of called to do that and you
Mhm.
kind of like don't feel good about where you are skill-wise with that, you're gonna shit on it.
Yeah, for
Mhm.
sure.
Insecurity in your
Mhm.
inability, which is not your fault. Like, once again, no one should expect that of you, but like
Yeah.
comics are the most thin-skinned, sardonic people in the world. The irony that like so many of them can give it and not take it is
Yep.
just it's a sad irony of like comedians in general that I wish we could kind of get over a little bit more.
Great.
But yeah, it's kind of like that same thing. Like I ran this open mic in Austin called Banter, where after comedian sets, I
Mhm.
would do a Q&A with them, and it was
For sure.
really polarizing. Like, what comic doesn't wanna practice their Leno or their Conan
Yeah.
sets and interview afterward? But so many
Mhm.
are just like, "Ew, why is he asking me questions? I just wanna do my set." Well, you can do that, but, like, and then eventually, like, most everyone ended up really liking it and, like, really liked Banner. So, like, we do that as a format for a show every once in a while, but
I mean, I was gonna say
Yeah.
that's kind of interesting to me though, like, yeah, why wouldn't you wanna practice that, being on Jimmy Fallon or, Colbert, whatever? Like,
it's
why
because 'cause we're
wouldn't you wanna
sardonic and thin-skinned, that's why.
That
You
is
know,
very
it's not
interesting
half
to me,
praise.
that's one of the things that, like, John and I talk about too is, like, how you deal with hecklers and stuff like that. Like, there are some comics who, like, really handle hecklers well and almost kind of
Yeah.
play off of it like it's almost a piece of what they do, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
that sort of
yeah.
like a almost like a heckler crowd work
And
kinda
some
element.
comics, and I won't say who, especially with the advent of social media, but, like, a lot of them will have put plants in the audience.
For
So it's
sure.
like, "Whoa, he handled this heckler." I'm like, "Well, yeah, of course he did. He wrote that script." Like, I could make anyone look stupid if I wrote a script to make them look stupid,
Yeah.
So
I mean,
Yep.
I guess, performance it's a performance art however you do it, I suppose,
For sure.
right? Like, so
but
I guess
with hecklers in the wild, real hecklers,
in the
Yeah.
wild.
here's my rule. Well, and not really like, well, yeah, it's my rule. And like, I don't know where I read it or whose advice I got this from, but
Yeah.
it's somewhere in comedy annals, and it was like some of the best advice for heckling I'd ever read. But it was like, and it totally worked every time I've done it now. But the first time someone like heckles, like maybe they shout something and you like laugh it off, right? Like, don't come
Yep.
down on them,
Mm,
even if they're in the wrong. Like, "Hey, yeah, whatever, buddy, heh." And then what now, like, everyone's annoyed, but everyone's like, "Oh, that comic is so cool that he didn't just, like, rain shit on this guy."
yeah.
The second they do it again, they've lost all benefit of the doubt. The second one's probably gonna be a little bit bolder because you kinda now, like, gave them a pass. Now they're like, "Oh, we'll wait until they get this next one." And then
Yeah.
now you have all the ammunition, like, you
Yep.
can use their first heckle's ammunition, you can use their second heckle's ammunition and really make your case for why they suck. And that's when it gets really fun.
And that's when it gets really fun.
Right.
I love it.
Well, we had Mark Christopher Lawrence on here,
Mhm.
and he was explaining to us, like, how he deals with hecklers, and he'll usually give them 2 chances.
That's
He'll, like,
yeah,
just play it off, and then he's gonna make the attention on you, you know what I mean? He'll give you what you want, but
yeah.
he'll give you what you want in a way that you don't want it, basically, you know what I mean?
Well, they're like, everyone else in the audience is gonna like what they see except for one person.
Of course. It's
Well,
entertaining
and
the way you look at it.
have you ever had, anything that's, like, escalated to the point someone needed to, like, be removed or anything like that? I mean,
Yep.
how often is that actually, the nightmare scenario, how real is it?
Yeah, it happens every once in a while. Not like to me necessarily, where people have heckled me to the point that they've had to be escorted, but like, yeah, there's been like I've seen plenty of rowdy incidents in bars. Probably like my best heckler, like my best destruction of a heckler. Like after I moved to LA, I've been married, but my wife and I were separated. And so I was doing like a bit in LA, and it was going to be about like how I'm married and I'm separated and all this stuff, and
Yeah.
like what I'm going through. And I didn't have a ring, at this point. So I opened the bit with like, I'm married. And there's nothing worse than a comic who's a heckler. It's like
Yeah.
some comics can help themselves. It's never really like super seasoned comics, but some of them, like, it's usually like a new comic thing if you like still somehow heckle comics, but it's like, okay, this might be a sloppy metaphor, but in Django, remember how he said that there's like slaves hate black slave owners more than anything. It's like
Yeah.
that's how you feel as a comic. You're like, I trusted you, man. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
We're
But
supposed to be on the same team here.
exactly. So I was like, I'm married, and then she goes, "Where's your ring?" And that just like out of nowhere, right? And I just like shocked me, and I was just like,
Let me tell
"Where's?"
you,
Oh, I
I'm
was
gonna
like,
say this in defense of just in defense of ladies. That might not have been, that may not have been a comic response. That may have been like a legit like something in her past was triggered. She was like, "Oh, really? Are you like what?" You know.
I have zero doubt. I have zero doubt that that plays a factor, right? But it's like, but you hear that, or it's like, hey, I'm a comic telling you what's happening in my life, and like maybe let's see where it goes first before you try
Yeah.
to, you know. So I was like,
Well,
I'm
and
married. Yeah.
also, if you're a comic and you know that you're talking about something personal and it's probably real, like I don't need the extra knife, thank you. I'm having a hard enough
Like,
time. I'm trying to make some
For
lemons out of
sure.
lemon or lemonade from lemons here.
hear a brother out, you know, like that's what we're here
Yeah.
for. So I was like,
Well, that,
I'm she goes, "Where's your ring?" And I was just shocked for a second. I was like, "Where's your manners?" And the room just
yeah.
died. And I was like, and the thing is, I'd had a really bad open mic set up to that point. And now I was like, thank you so much. Like your heckle saved my whole set. So I couldn't even be that mad.
Right? Hey,
Yeah.
there you go. It turned out to work, right? So maybe it was
Yeah.
again that divine intervention. It's just kismet. It works out the right way somehow, right?
Chicken salad out of chicken shit.
Absolutely.
However you got to do it. I mean, if you put
Right.
ranch on anything, it's good, right?
Which is
That's
really, you know, that's how he felt about the spank and like Caroline opening up her friend's backyard to us to perform our sketch and stuff like that. You know, it's like we ended up getting, you know, like meeting a lot of people within UCB there, you know, at that, and we got a trial run at it, and now we're like in a better. So you know, once again, it's like I was incensed. I was incensed. And my cousin, he's very dramatic. I'm always talking him down off of ledges. So when he's like, Brian, this
yeah.
email's like pretty aggressive. I'm like, okay.
You need to dial it back just a little bit.
Yeah. If he's telling me to dial it back, then okay. All right. You're probably right.
Yeah, for sure. So back to the let's say back to the heckler stuff
Yeah, totally.
or the unwanted stuff of the comedy world. Have you ever been either forced or just walked off the stage? Have you ever walked off in the middle of a set?
That's a really good question. Hold on, and real quick, if I could just like share like
Absolutely. Do
Yeah.
that.
an anecdote of sorts, something like related to
Mhm.
heckling. And this
Yeah.
I've been doing, you know, stand up for like 7, 8 years now. Like, you know, my first open mic was 11, 12 years ago. But if I count like the years, like the cumulative years that I've really committed to it, like 7 to
Mhm.
8 feels accurate. And like, you know, that's kind of like where I so
You can absolutely say since first grade when you had that first, you can
yeah, maybe
absolutely
not
go back that
stand up.
far.
I wasn't doing so much observational humor back then, you know, I wasn't doing as much stand up, but like yeah, in
Right.
terms of like that specific art form. And so I, you know, I did it for a few years, obviously before COVID, done it a few years since COVID. And my first show back in Austin when COVID, you know, it was starting to open up. And my parents came out, you know, that's where I'm from, and they'll come out and see like and now that Austin's comedy scene's really blown up, it's like
Yep.
that, you know, I have like a lot more shows to take them to whenever they're out here or whenever I'm out there. So there's this one in Georgetown, and there's this I'm blanking on his last name, Ryan. His name is Ryan, and you know, what he's doing are clearly jokes, but it's like very Anthony Jeselnik, where everything is like the darkest thing you've ever heard.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
Like he opens with like, you know, when COVID happened, they released a lot of sexual predators from jail, so I thought I'd stop by. So like that's how he opens, right? And then you can just
Very
imagine
nice.
what the rest of his set is like. So my mom has been the mother of a performer for a long time. When she started heckling him, and I'm like humiliated, and she like her and her friend are just like, "Boo, like sit down." And like I get it. He's
Like,
saying
really, we're just very upset with the content, huh? Just not having
yes,
it.
yes. She has not since then, you know, and like, but I approached her. I was like, "Mom, like you can't do this," you know, and
You
like
can't
super,
do the
yeah, yeah. So it's
This
like
is the bit. This is part of it. Like, you're supposed to be upset.
Yeah, and just like I cannot have my mom be the heckler, right? Like I can't be the comic whose mom comes every once in a while and heckles and ruins everyone's party.
I think
Well, I
that
mean,
is probably why we would just not bring
yeah.
our parents, Johnny,
Well,
like,
I'm gonna
I
be
think
honest.
they're all off the list for being invited,
No, no,
is what
no,
I'm
no.
gonna say.
No. I'm gonna be honest. My mother, she would be the heckler, 100%.
They're like, "Nope, Cindy, you can't come. Sorry, you're not invited."
Oh yeah, my mom would be the heckler for sure.
I will say, and in Austin, it's usually suburban moms who I get heckled for, but it's like such
Yeah.
a well-meaning heckling, like, "Oh, do you know like the Curtis kid from Cedar Park or whatever?"
Oh my
You
gosh.
know?
Oh, that's cute
Yeah,
though.
it's just
See, they're
yeah,
just really genuinely interested, and they probably think that you're adorable.
right. And I'll be
Probably.
like, when I show up and I do it, I'm like, "I'm from Austin. I know I look like someone who moved here to ruin it," and that usually gets me
Oh,
off the
no.
same page. It's really polarizing. That
You
joke
know
does better in LA than it does in Austin, but that's not surprising because everyone
well,
thinks
I was gonna say, that's a joke that you could also equally do in the Dakotas where we're from. That's something that
yeah.
we have the all you Californians coming out here, and I can't understand why. Do you not understand what winter is?
No, I've always known. That's why I've always lived in, warmer climates. I know it's out
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
No, good for you. That's the goal is to
My
get away
stupid
from
my
this.
stupid comedy friends are like, "I'm gonna go to New York and act and do." No, fuck that. Jesus.
I am with you 100%. The
Well,
streets are filled with trash and it's cold as fuck.
yeah. Well, I mean, we're agreeing with you, but we do live in a place that gets negative 40s.
Yeah, but with a way lower cost of living,
For sure. I
And
mean,
that
that's why
and
people stay away.
I guess, what price are you
Absolutely.
willing to put on sunshine is the question, right?
It is priceless, right? Because like, it does affect your
It
mood.
is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, I
Seasonal
it's so
depression is a real thing and we are dealing with it like
yeah.
100%.
Yeah, y'all are the unsung heroes for sure, and you're just getting into it. I mean, I'm serious though, because it's like that's also why once again, I wanna move to New York to freeze, be depressed, and pay out the ass for
Yeah.
everything.
Right.
Like,
Living a cell.
because it has a great food scene, like, what? Like, yes,
Yeah.
that's part of it, but, and
You
great
can
comedy scene, like, and cold places breed, like, tough people, and I love tough people, but,
Yeah.
LA's full of tough people because, like, 1, for a sunny place, it is a hard city, and so
Yeah.
many people here also come from, like, tough places, and they're, like,
Yeah.
grinders.
and that's
So,
why they came there, right? Because
yeah,
they're looking for something new and to, get a
like
little bit
how
of
I
that.
came from the mean streets of North Austin suburbs,
Right.
you know? Way up.
I mean, we came from the mean streets of towns that are, like, less than
Oh, yeah.
1,000 people. Like, we like to say, if you go into a Walmart wherever you are, you're shopping with more people than we grew up with.
That's
Like,
crazy. Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
it's a different kind of flavor. Not
Where
everybody
would y'all
understands.
where would y'all ha sorry, where would y'all hang out or, like, go
Well,
oh, yeah.
um,
Well, in high school, we thought it was
yeah.
fun to go to the, little coffee shop slash flower shop in town
Lovely.
and sit around during the day and have some cappuccinos. But if
Yeah.
you were gonna go drink, then you just went and John, we've talked about this, hanging out at the section line.
No, well, yeah, I mean, like, if you don't have a place to party, you make a place to party. Like a section line is a road that's basically grass with 2 tire marks. You know what I mean? I don't
That's
know if you're
that's what I picture, like, I know y'all aren't in Nebraska, but I picture, like, the cornfields, right? It's like
oh,
that's
it's
Yeah,
not a
that's
far cry
that's
from Nebraska. It's pretty close. But I don't know, you would, like you said, you would go drink on a section line or something. But I was when I was in high school, I played music. But I was relatively straight laced kid. I didn't do drugs and I didn't drink. I just played music and like I don't know. In a small town, you kind of have to find your own lane and just
yeah, totally.
you got to find something to keep you busy, or else drinking is going to consume you. Like, it's
yeah.
pretty
Yeah,
much.
true. I mean, so many people I know, from small towns are so successful because, it took such
Yep.
a tenacity to, like, get out of there in the first place, and
Yep.
then, like, to have gotten out of there, you had to have been really good or really obsessed with one particular thing. So, like,
Yeah.
to be successful at something, you have to become like a machine of it. So, like, if you are a
For sure.
musician, It's like you
Yep.
became a music machine. You played, you produced, or like you learned how to use GarageBand and whatever. And you know,
Yeah.
I have a buddy from Silsbee, Texas. He lives in LA with his wife now. And I knew him in Austin. We went to UT together. Joe Daly, I'll shout him out. And
Okay.
he's just a total machine. Like he
Yeah.
plays guitar and sings and writes and like immediately found his tribe with improv and sketch here in LA and like found his theater and like is already doing shows after only being here like, you know, 1.5 to 2 years, which is like
Yep.
nothing in LA time, so it's
Yeah.
like and he my another good buddy of mine from Atlanta, Texas, where Ellen DeGeneres is from. So it's crazy that like his name is Will Britton. He's a very successful actor, and there's like 5 people in Atlanta. 2 of them are famous. It's like
Yeah.
there's that says something about the people who come out of those places.
Yeah, for
Oh
sure.
yeah,
Well,
it's there's
we're
a certain no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, well, I mean, one person that's from about 45 miles from my hometown is Lawrence Welk.
Yeah,
So
that's
that's
awesome.
about our claim to fame.
Yeah,
That's
that's who
Lawrence
we
Welk,
have.
man.
No,
That's
but
big
it
enough.
is true. You have
Yeah.
when you have a drive to kind of like get out of just the normal what you've seen everyone doing, and
Mhm.
it is. I like that you say it that way. You kind of have to be a machine. So like it makes me feel a little bit better
Yes.
that I am burning myself out just a little bit trying to keep up with editing and things like that for the
Mhm.
podcast. But it's like,
No,
no, this
I
is what I
know.
want to do. This is, you got to put
Yeah.
yourself into it, whatever else you're doing.
And so, like, it took a while. It's like I got good at acting, I got good at comedy, but then I had to kind of you know, put the pieces together. I'm in LA and like I'm obviously know my cousin all my life, and we've always, we went to acting camps together as kids, but it's like he lives a mile away from me. It's a really wasted
Yeah.
opportunity if we're not doing anything. So, we hang out a lot, but like if we could sacrifice some time to write a sketch, hey, now we have something. If someone's like, "What do you got, kid?" It's like we got our thing that we could do, right?
Hmm.
If we make a podcast that forces us to do something together, right?
Yeah.
So like and we could have ideas exchange while we produce that, even if like I'm the one editing and stuff like that, and I still
Mhm.
have a full-time job, and I still, you know, have to audition, like whenever auditions come in and go to open mics and book shows and stuff like that. So it's like I feel like kind of doing the podcast and taking classes were kind of like those two things that help kind of piece it all together and make it a more whole picture instead of just being like I'm skilled in this profession, it's like now
Yeah.
it's like I have something a little bit more sticky to glue it all together. So you're doing the
Absolutely.
right thing, Haley. You're doing the right thing. I know it's a bitch.
I
I
appreciate
know
it. It is a
it is.
bitch, but I appreciate the acknowledgement. I really do because
Yeah.
I see it.
if
I see
if
it.
if you don't get it
Oh, I
from the people
appreciate
who
it.
are in your circle, and
You too, Johnny.
John's been great
No,
too. Though, let
no.
me tell you
She's
what
got
he.
notes of the editing and
Fair
stuff.
enough,
I
fair enough.
appreciate you.
Oh, that's
Appreciate
nice.
Well,
That's nice.
I
I thought that was you being
appreciate.
like, I'm over here too, bitch. I was like,
Oh,
Johnny,
no.
you too,
No,
bitch.
no, no. Let me tell
Following
you what.
everybody.
Johnny has been very flexible though, and I do appreciate you for that because he's been able to roll with the punches. And there's more than one time where we've just been chatting, and I've been, why are we not recording this as a
Yeah,
podcast? What are
that's
we
right.
like, Johnny? We're turning this
Yeah.
under record. This is no longer just
Right.
a private conversation.
I
Yeah,
try to
that
be.
was yeah,
Oh,
that's Julian too. It's like,
yeah.
because we're so funny together, obviously, and then
Yep.
he's just like, "Oh my god, like we are losing, we're losing mojo by like not turning this into art."
Right?
Yep.
Why is there not a microphone in front of me?
Yeah.
If we're this, you got to get this stuff on camera. It's too good to just leave it in the ether.
Yeah, and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like, we try to get better. It's like some episodes are going to be better than others. Some
Mhm.
episodes you're up or down. But it's like once you've started doing better, it's like now you have like kind of a new stasis, a new standard, and it's like,
Yep.
hey, if we have like even a bad episode, at least it was never as bad as our bad episode before that. It's like so now it's
Yeah.
like your worst case scenario is always improving. It's never gonna
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, it's a constant evolution, right? And
Mhm.
it's if you keep coming back to it and if you do stick with it, like you can't not get better at it.
Yeah, totally, totally.
For sure. So I have a couple more questions. I'm usually the question guy. I put it together a good little list
Yes.
for you. Oh,
John does help me out with like writing the question
for
portion
sure.
of it. So appreciate you again for that. Look at
If
this.
you
Everybody just throwing around some appreciation. I think it's great. Just me
it's
and
all
my
good.
little unicorns and rainbows. I like to
Right.
acknowledge that
This is
stuff.
very like just an appreciative episode, and I feel
We do
very
our part.
safe in this space. And thank you for having me and
No,
acknowledging.
it's
Oh,
absolutely a safe space, even though we did throw you off with the introduction because we thought it was kind of fun.
What? Yeah, no, that's good.
Yeah.
yeah. Right. But one question: if you could play any part in a movie, what movie would it be, and what part would you play?
Like the only role I've not the only role I ever wanted, but what was so clearly my number one for
Yeah.
the longest time, and still is. I'm just too long in the tooth for it now. But
Okay.
Spider-Man, I always wanted to play Spider-Man.
Okay.
Now if I ever get cast, it would be as like the alternate, the B universe Spider-Man, the one who like already
No,
like
I absolutely think you need to write
Right.
that sketch. Write
okay.
that sketch and put that on YouTube. I would
Mhm.
watch that. I
Okay.
would watch like Spider-Man who's in his like, I'm turning
Well, and
37.
I don't know if you've seen the Spider-Verse films, but, it's yeah, it's like it's like the one that I clearly am right now is the one that's voiced by, Jake Jake Johnson, right, from, New Girl. Yeah, that's
Uh-huh.
like
Yeah.
he's like a little bit
Okay.
long in the tooth, he's, like, past his prime and stuff like that. I'm like,
Right.
"That's the Spider-Man I identify." I'm not some fresh-faced high schooler or anything like that, but it's
Yeah.
like
Oh,
that was the role that I wanted for so long, and, but now it's like it's funny that now in the new ones, there's, like even if it's animated, it's like, okay, there's a
Mhm.
type of Spider-Man out there that could, like, exist in my demographic now, so
Yeah. For sure.
absolutely. Everything is
There's
available in the infinite multiverse, right?
for
exactly.
sure.
Like I do some writing too, like in the science fiction fantasy area. I have a
Nice.
fictional podcast. So like that's right up my alley. I write all about like the multiverse and stuff like that. And I would absolutely watch a Spider-Man that I could identify with because
Mhm.
I'm turning 37 in 2 days. And let me tell you what, I would like to know what Wonder Woman in her late 30s was up to. You
Haley,
know,
I thought you were younger than me. I'm
how
not
old
gonna
are you? Do we get to
Yeah. Fair.
let's play that game for me for just a hot second.
Okay. Yeah. Let's make
How
us feel
old do I
bad.
look?
I mean, I thought late 20s.
Ah,
I
shut
thought I
Now
thought, like,
listen, here's the
27.
question. Here's the question.
What?
Are you padding your answer a little bit just to
No.
be nice?
No, legitimately thought I was like, "Who's this cool young girl who is, like,
No, who
who wants to talk to my old crusty comedian ass?"
no.
And it's
Who is this like bitch who's coming into premenopause probably pretty shortly is what it is. Like,
Right.
that's where we're sitting. But I do
Yeah.
appreciate the compliment. I will absolutely take it. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Hope it cools off some of your hot flashes.
I
Absolutely.
know, like, let me tell you what, these ring lights in here, holy hell, let me
Yeah.
it's a rough time. I bet if I was up on stage and doing any of the things you do, all the nerves and things would probably just make it that much worse.
And I still get excited. I still, as long as you do it, sometimes right before you go on stage, you're just like, I don't know any of my material. Or you just be like,
Yeah.
wow, I don't know what I'm about to do. Or like, I don't know any of my stuff. Do I even remember what it's like to be a comedian? Like, it's something that you could, as simple as it is, it's you on a microphone, you could still like feel like you forget how to do it. So
Yeah.
sometimes the one thing that never fails is just standing in the pocket and just, okay, this is so lame. But one of my favorite like kind of principles on acting, and it's like a Stanislavski thing, and it's kind of like just a thought experiment. But if you're watching a play and there's like a cat that walks on stage, what's everyone going to look at? They're going to look at the cat.
Mhm.
Are they going to look at the cat? The cat is not acting. The cat's just existing, and that's what we're really interested in. So the best actors aren't people you're looking at being like, "Wow, look how hard they're acting," or "Oh, they're clearly acting." The best actors you're just looking at, you're so compelled that they're existing. So we all just kind of want to exist as that cat. And it's so different on stand up. People are so compelled by like, what they see as like an honest interaction. And if you're just standing there, if you're feeling dumbfounded or befuddled, just sit in that energy. People will absorb it and they'll find something humorous about it. So if you ever forget
Yeah.
how to be a comic, just sit in the pocket and fucking take it.
I like that because,
Yeah.
we all have those moments where we feel like I don't know if it's imposter syndrome or what it is, but you have that anxiety or you have that whatever, and I think it does make it we're all human, we all have those things. You gotta just lean
Yeah.
into it, and the audience is gonna get it. It's gonna be approachable, relatable, We've all had those moments. But so and I know John was gonna ask this, so
Go
you
for it.
talked is does it get better over time from when you started? Like, would you look at where you started and say that you still have moments that are, like, really close to that same level of anxiety, or does it kinda taper off?
Yeah, it's like always before what you perceive to be like this huge opportunity. And you can just never account for what's gonna happen that's outside of your control. Like not that long ago, there's this comedy series called Don't Tell. And it's like this well-known comedy series, and they have productions like all over the US.
Mhm.
And my friend knows the Vegas booker. He booked us, and like I know so many people who had this great tape from Don't Tell that just like completely launched their careers into another stratosphere. So I'm like miking so hard. I'm like getting my 15 down, like the 15 I'm gonna do for that set. I know I'm gonna crush because like I've been doing really well, and like I'm mixing new material with old material, so it's like stuff I'm excited to do, and like that energy is translating. And then finally the day happens, and I also have a theory about comedy shows in coffee shops. But so this is like in a coffee shop. It's like a coffee shop that serves beer, but it's like repurposed, as like
Mhm.
this space in Vegas. And I thought I fricking nailed it. Like I was like, I'm doing what I'm delivering the jokes. I'm here in the pocket. And just like I never got the consistent room full of consistent laughs that you really want. It's like I'd say a joke, that half of the room laugh. I'd say another joke, the other half of the room laugh. I'm just like, how am
Yep.
I not getting y'all on the same page? And
Yep.
I want to hang myself. Like I'm morose. My good buddy who's a comedian who and he's already more dour than I am in general. He's like ready to lose it all in Vegas that night. Like he's ready
Mhm.
to like OD
Like,
and
giving
all
it
in
up.
black. Yeah, so what saved, I think, my life, and it's just like such a small act of kindness, but the photographer who was there, I think her name is Kristen, and I want to shout her out because like, and she like we ended up following each other on Instagram, and she shot all the Don't Tell shows. She told the bartender, and I wasn't there for this. The bartender told me this. The bartender's like, "I want you to know the photographer came out and said the comics are doing well, but it's the audience is really kind of like weird, or like the audience is kind of letting them down." She's like, she's like, "The comics are funny, like these are good comics, the audience." And I was like, that she said that to like without a comic there, to like feel better about it and all that stuff. It's like that made my whole night better. So it's like
Yep.
I was so anxious for
Oh,
this show. I thought I was ready. I thought I did pretty well. In fairness, like, and everyone did pretty well, but you're there to crush. You're there
yeah.
to
Yep.
have a life-changing set.
Mhm.
So whenever you walk out, it's kind of lukewarm. You're just like, well, nothing's gonna change. Like I
Yeah.
know it changed my life. But to hear that like people in the know were still like, okay, that was a good set. It was an off
Mhm.
night. Like that made my whole night.
Well, but that also,
Yeah.
I think, is something you should take away as just because the crowd isn't necessarily giving the reaction that you want, doesn't mean that no one in the crowd is noticing your talent or noticing that you're good.
Yeah.
And you never know who's going to be there, who's going to see you. And, there's plenty of
Yeah.
times that I'm sure, because I've gone to a couple of comedy shows. I'm sure there's plenty of
Mhm.
times when, I might find something really funny and be like, what is wrong with you people? You're not like, why are you not
Yeah.
laughing and having a good time? Like,
Yep.
you can't always account for those kind of things. So, if she noticed, there's probably other people in the crowd who noticed too. And you never know when that big next person who wants you to be the mid-30s
Yeah.
Spider-Man is gonna be the
Yeah.
one who's in the crowd.
No, it's true. It's true. And so, that's why like I just can't let it beat me, even if like
Yeah.
internally I'm dying and I'm screaming on the inside. It's like I can't. I still got to take it on the chin and smile through it. And
Yeah.
so it's like, lesson learned. And you just can't put all your eggs in that one basket, because it's kind of crazy, like thinking that I had a somewhat mediocre Don't Tell set, and I'm like, my career's over. now I've never feel better about stuff because I have the UCB show tomorrow, and now I'm like
Yeah.
as optimistic as I've been, and plenty of other great stuff is happening. So you just can't put all your eggs in one basket, or feel like, oh, I had my shot and it didn't work out,
Yeah.
so now
Yeah, for sure.
treats, I crumble back into
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, for sure.
No, there's
You,
always something else coming up. There's always something on the horizon.
for sure.
People have
You,
short memories.
yeah.
That too.
Do you have any like if you have nerves or something like that, do you have anything you do before a set? Before and probably an hour before you go out, do you have there's a comic I like Joey Coco Diaz.
Oh, I love Joey.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, I love Joey.
and
And
he's also Cuban.
yeah, oh yeah, very cute.
Joey Coco
No,
Diaz, your friend Brian Bogart is here, and he would like very
I've
much to work with you
always
on a
wanted.
project.
No, I so want Joey to know I exist.
oh,
I
that'd be a trip.
Put it out
Fucking
into the
rare.
universe. We'll
Yeah,
get it.
Yeah. But like before a set, he wants to find something and he gets himself frazzled, like frustrated, pissed off or whatever. And then he goes out on stage right after he like does a
yeah,
rant like
yeah,
that. Like that's how he gets out of his own head. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And
And
we
if
are like,
if you know your material really well, that's great. If you're gonna
yep,
get like frazzled and it's gonna fuck up your material, then like
yeah, for
it's
sure.
not so great. So yeah, that the fact that he can do that and get in his
Mhm.
head, I feel like more McConaughey in my stand up, not like and just that
Okay.
I just sit there and say my
Yeah.
words real slow, or like it's kind of more of my delivery is less ranty. There's like maybe
Yeah.
some theatrics to it, but yeah, so it's like the opposite for me. Whatever the opposite of getting
Yeah.
all riled up is, that's kind of
Okay.
my
Sit
preparation.
down, meditate for a little bit, right? Do some
Yeah,
Om.
like I always, it just comes down to breathing. I
Remember
noticed.
spin class.
Yeah, exactly. And I noticed I'm like, it's not flattering, but it's like, theater and yoga breaths are like right into your belly. It makes
Mhm.
you look
Yeah.
fat, but hey,
Yep.
if it helps you pace your stand-up sets, who
Mhm.
cares? Another rule of stand-up too is like the moment you kill your ego, you're immediately funny. The moment you've
Yeah.
had like 3 good sets in a row and you're like, "I've crushed my last 3 sets. Here I go killing again." The moment you think you're a little bit cool, you have a bad set again, and then you're
Yep.
back at 0. And then that humility makes you funny again, and then you think you're cool again, and then you come
Yeah.
crashing down again. It
Mhm.
And
just
it's
happens every fucking time.
it's just a magnificent roller
Right.
coaster that you get to keep
Right.
riding. You
And
just gotta
maybe I don't tell. I was like, "I've been crushing, like, watch me crush again." And, once again, we're still gonna officially blame the crowd on that one, but hey, maybe that and you're saying, like, and blame the crowd or whatever. It's like every comic thinks, and to some reason, maybe they should, but every comic thinks that if it wasn't a bad set, even if the crowd is bad, they could have done something and should have done something to get them back on your side, even if you
Yeah.
had to, like, you know, break out of what your normal set was gonna be,
Mhm.
snap them back into it.
Well, comics in their own way are kind of a lot like musicians. It's never good enough. It
Yes.
could always be better. You know what I mean? Like, because when you play music, you get one shot at it. You can
Yeah.
always start over, but then you look like a fucking blowjob. And then, so it's like, you don't want to do that. But it's like you mess up and then it is what it is. It's like, but
I think I think the primary difference between stand-up comedy and music is that people like music, and they want to go see music, and
right.
they will show
Well,
up for concerts.
well,
People
listen.
fucking hate
I
comedy.
I always
They
I
hate
always thought it
comedy.
was an interesting thing with that a lot of comics want to be musicians and a lot of musicians want to be comics. You know what I mean? Like I thought it was such a weird thing that though they want to like trade professions quite a bit.
Yeah, and, like, a lot of football players wanna play basketball. It's like,
Yep.
everyone there's a grass always greener. My
Yeah.
dear friend and, like, former acting teacher, her name's Miranda Luna. Her husband is Gabriel Luna, who was in The Last of Us. He was in the newest Terminator movie.
Yeah.
He's, like, a literal famous actor. And Sma will put on a lot of live shows, like, Gabe is booked to all of them. All the man wants to do is play guitar and sing. He
Yep.
just, like yeah, it's like he's not doing a Shakespeare monologue, he just, like, wants to sing, like, every time I see him do a live performance, he's, like, singing, so it's like,
Yeah.
like, art so I think that's so precious that, like, this famous actor who's, like, known for being this, like, brooding leading man type is just like, so I'm gonna do, Brooks and Dunn Neon Moon for you guys. And I'm like,
Yeah.
like
So I mean, that's
Oh,
so
that's
it
fantastic.
is a little bit true though, right? That idea of like the grass is always greener.
always.
We have certain kind of conditioning, I think, just as humans that we think somehow what we see externally has to be better than what we have, and it's like, no, they deal with all the same bullshit that you're dealing with, and
For sure.
they're probably looking at you and looking at what you have and thinking, man, my life would be easier if I was that person.
Yeah, yeah, and people are like, "Oh man, look at you, you're doing it," and I
Mhm.
really don't feel like I am. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
I have a lot of that going on. So,
yeah,
you know what? No, you are doing it. It's valid. We were super excited that you said that you would be on the podcast. I was super
Yeah, for
jazzed
sure.
about it.
Yeah.
Loved
I've
looking
had
at
a
all
lot
your
of
sketch
fun.
stuff.
Yeah, you guys have been so much fun to hang out with.
Yeah.
I mean, thanks,
I'm
and really good questions too. And you guys
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
yeah,
Yeah, for sure. Um, I do have a few more if we
yeah,
want.
Johnny,
Yeah,
yeah.
if you've got time, we want to be respectful of
No, no,
your
no, I'm
time.
here. Yeah, yeah. I don't have to be at that other mic, for a while, so you're good.
Okay, I got a couple more. I just want to
Of
know.
course.
I ask this to everybody,
Mhm.
depending on what they do, comedy, acting, whatever. What is your comedy Mount Rushmore?
Oh, that's really good. Um,
'Cause we're from the Dakotas, wink, wink.
yeah,
Yep.
that's yeah. So it's not like it. Whenever other people like ask about your Mount Rushmore blank, are you like that's appropriation of Dakotans and
For
Dakotan
sure.
culture?
It is,
Yeah.
and we're really upset about it, and if you
Only
come
I can
here,
ask about who's on your Mount Rushmore.
only we can. Unless
That's
unless you bring us snacks, in which case you are forgiven.
in which case you can say
That's
whatever.
all that's all you need. If you bring us
Yeah,
snacks,
for sure.
we're
Also,
happy.
I feel like no one ever asks anyone what their Mount Rushmore of like blank is unless they respect their
Mhm.
opinion on that. So that's probably why I've never been asked that question before. So now I'm like, oh my
Mhm.
God, this is my first inside the actor studio. Like you guys,
Absolutely.
Right.
wow.
This
Well, I
is your
try to make
audition
it.
for it.
I don't know. I try to make it somewhat interviewee, somewhat organic.
I'll just
I try to let them kind of tell their tale and kind of hold back. When we do our solo ones, I talk way more. I'm not a weird, like, quiet guy or anything.
no, and I'll say the first ones that like kind of come to mind, and who knows, it maybe the order changes over time or there's one in, one out. But like here's like
Mm,
just who comes to mind and kind of like why I will say them.
okay.
And we'll start with Robin Williams.
Of course.
And
Yes.
because to me, he also represents the bridge between someone who's like a phenomenal comedic talent, like as a stand-up, but
Mhm.
also like an otherworldly acting talent.
Yes.
And this is something that no comic wants to hear from another comic but this is kind of like why I got into comedy was like I always wanted to be an actor. And then I noticed so many of the actors of that era who I loved, I was like, oh, they were all stand-up comics, like Adam Sandler,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Nick Swardson, like that was
Mhm.
like, that all these
Well, I mean, look at classic SNL, not ready for primetime players. They all started in like the stand-up improv world and got to SNL and then
right.
went
That
on to
was
do the
like
movies.
content that was resonating with me. So I was like, oh, this is what I feel like I want to do and like stuff I'd want to act in. And like, oh, if these guys are comics, then I have to kind of force myself to be a comic. And it was like a really rocky road. I feel like
Yep.
I was bad at comedy for a long time because I had to like kind of unlearn some bad theater habits.
Yep.
I came from the
Okay.
theater world where everyone's all cuddly. Like I said, all comics are like assholes. So it's like I come in and I'm like, "Hey guys, massage train." Not really, but like, that. And there's like, "Who's this fucking ginger?" Like,
Right? Oh,
Coming
yeah.
in here trying to be cuddly with everybody.
And also and also when you first start and maybe you loved Louis CK, and I
yep.
like maybe once upon a time I could have put him on my Mount Rushmore, but we won't get into
Yeah,
this.
right. Are you allowed to anymore? What are the rules, right?
But yeah, yeah. So, but, he was like a big influence, but like once again, he dealt with like a lot of powerful shit. And if you're like someone who's trying to emulate him, but you don't have the language to like really master his
Yeah.
stuff, it's like you can get off to a really bad foot really fast if you like are trying to quote unquote be edgy, but like you're brand new, so you don't even know how to do it right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like once again, I there are many self-inflicted wounds along the way. So, anyways, Robin Williams because he represents like acting and, stand-up excellence.
Okay.
Dave Chappelle in large part too because of his also propensity for, like, sketch.
Mhm.
and
Yep.
text writing. And like, is he the best
Yep.
actor? He's actually like a pretty good actor, but like, he doesn't have to be the best actor. It's like
No.
he just delivers who he is and what he
Mhm.
Yeah.
needs to in his
I,
sketches. And like, yeah,
yeah. I mean, the Chappelle Show. That's why I love Donnell Rollins. It's like
love
I love
Donnell.
Donnell Rollins.
Yeah, yeah, and he's super funny, and I've seen him. You know,
You know?
I saw him perform with Chappelle at the Hollywood Bowl. I think like
Oh
a
yeah.
month
Nice.
now. Yeah. I was there like 2 days before I got attacked. If you remember when that happened.
Oh
Oh,
no.
wow.
Yeah. Third,
Okay.
George Carlin.
Yep.
Oh,
Uh,
Okay.
love George Carlin.
because of his perspective. He's like he has the comic perspective. And
Yep.
like it was like this. I saw something like recently. He just holds a place in my heart because of his worldview. I think is so
Yep.
transcendent.
Mhm.
And Jon Stewart did a tribute to him, and he was like, people called Carlin, like cynical, like especially as he got older. But it's like it's not that he's cynical. He's like he loved humanity,
Yeah.
but was disappointed by
Mhm.
it. Like behind every cynic is a disappointed optimist.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so it's like Carlin did everything he had to do, and the world let him down. You know,
Yeah.
um, so yeah, yeah, and but Carlin is on the Mount Rushmore for his worldview, for his ability to reinvent himself,
Yep.
and his longevity, and
Mhm.
that's special.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I do agree with all those things. Those are reasons that I love Carlin too.
yeah, and my last one, and maybe this one could kind of rotate. You could rotate someone here or there, but maybe just because like I think he's the godfather of modern comedy. And like comedy, stand up as we know it, and as a social
Mhm.
commentary wouldn't exist without this person. Would you have a guess, Johnny? I'm just
It's
curious.
one of two people. It's either Richard Pryor or
Ooh,
Sam
Richard Pryor is who was on my mind.
Richard Pryor, or who was the second one, Johnny?
Sam Kinison.
Oh yeah, not okay, yeah, not bad. Or who would have been a great one is Bill Hicks. But
Yep. Bill Hicks.
I'm gonna say Richard Pryor. But
Yes.
that is
Mhm.
who was on my mind, and so like he's just
Yep.
true original, and it's like kind of like you wouldn't have pop music
Yep.
without the Beatles. It's like I don't
Mhm.
know if you'd have comedy as we know without Richard Pryor.
Mhm.
I
For
agree,
sure.
and I love a lot of his, like, even his early stuff that you can find on, like, YouTube now. It's really fun to go back and watch and see sort of the development,
Yeah,
over the
yeah,
course of
totally.
his career is really I think that for any of those comics, when you can go back and, like, look over the course of a career like Carlin and that kinda thing and see
Mhm.
them evolve not just in
Yeah.
comics and their craft, but as people and their for Carlin, I think I'm with you on that worldview thing and that
Yeah,
he
totally.
was able to mix that into his craft and what he did and still be very persuasive and very, very
Mhm.
And
clear
like
in the messages he was giving.
it's like a worldview that I just like to call the truth. And I think like kind
Yep.
of the funny part is Pryor and I think Carlin have very similar worldviews, if not
Mhm.
like, like extremely similar. But
Mhm.
it's like their language is different, their execution's different, their joke writing's different.
Mhm.
So it's like two versions of the truth that are both like at times maybe like I don't know if they contradict each other, but it's like there's such different perspectives all
Yeah.
saying the same thing. And I think that's a really beautiful thing.
Yeah. Carlin was, in my mind, Carlin's almost as unique as almost like a Mitch Hedberg. You know what I mean? Kind of
Mitch
like they
Hedberg
were
was so
Mitch
just
Hedberg, good
they were
cut
stuff.
very
short.
much their own lane. You know what I mean?
I feel like the sunglasses and all this is kind of like its own Mitch Hedberg tribute in a way.
Oh, I love
I
Mitch
love
Hedberg.
Mitch
So
Hedberg
good.
so
So
much.
good.
Yeah, and I think, once again, like, could Bill Hicks and Mitch Hedberg have been like on the Mount Rushmore too? Like, yeah, it's like it's just their careers were cut
Mhm.
short.
Yeah.
Um, and if I'm talking about like people who I love them so much, I couldn't not do comedy or like their brand of humor tickled me oh
Mhm.
so much and like really challenged me. That is Louis C.K. for me. So
Look at
I will
yeah,
put him
for
on
sure.
my Mount Rushmore, but I cannot I guess
I
I
you know,
talk
I've
about
always
formative
enjoyed
comedy
yeah,
without
I always enjoyed Louis CK too, and
Mhm.
I
And everyone did. Everyone
Yeah,
I
there
does.
was
and
a
I know
time where
things come up that, things get, like,
yeah,
problematic. I guess I
yeah,
am toxic positivity is a little bit me, and I kinda think that,
Yeah.
everyone deserves an opportunity to be forgiven and get past things, I think,
Right,
Yep.
it's
right. And
But
like,
it's
so, you know,
just
comedy.
you're not invalidating any of
Yeah.
the people that were affected in a negative way, obviously, but
But but you got to consider his comedy is undeniable because there was a time where he was as big as Dave Chappelle. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Like Louis C.K. was as big as comedy
He
itself.
was the guy. He was the guy.
Yep.
And then John Mulaney was the guy.
John
Um,
Mulaney.
yeah.
Yep.
who and it's funny, like I really loved them in order,
Mhm.
and then they
Mhm.
really rose to fame like right as I was like, as
Right.
it's yeah, and then someone who I love currently, Nate Bargatze, I think is
Yeah.
great.
Okay.
His special, The Tennessee Kid, I thought was a great one. And
Mhm.
and so whenever people are like, who do you like? And it's and if I ever want to bring up a comic that I like and has specials out there, but I don't think a lot of people know, he's super high up there.
Yeah.
Mark
Well,
Norman finally got his shot. My
yep.
buddy
Yeah.
Ralph Barbosa, he just got his Netflix.
Yeah.
I
I
saw
was
the night he became a star. He was touring with a lot of, it was like some kind of Latino
Mhm.
comedian thing that was happening, and it was with Chris
Yep.
Estrada who wrote This Fool, um, from Melissa Villaseñor and a bunch of others. No one knew who Ralph was, so he put on Facebook like, "Hey, I'm coming to LA. If you want a comp ticket at the Laugh Factory, let me know."
Mhm.
Um, and then I go, and it's like all these heavy hitters, all these no names, they're going after another. Ralph is next, and like no one knows who he is. That
Mhm.
all changed after this night, but I knew like no one knew who he is. They introduced him. He comes on stage, and then he just I don't know exactly what he says, but like he just acknowledges how quiet the crowd was and while he was getting up there,
Yeah.
he's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
that's how it's gonna be." The crowd just
Mhm.
like died instantly and
Mhm.
just never stopped laughing after that. It's like he
Love
called them
it.
Yeah.
out. They loved him for it. He had him right where he wanted him.
Mhm.
And I was like, Ralph is about to blow up. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. I was gonna say I've been seeing that name on my YouTube feed. He's been on he was on the Birdcast
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah,
and he
yeah.
was on What's Up Fool with Felipe Esparza.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna
He
say that name
he's been
sounds very
and
familiar.
I booked him on shows in Austin. He was just a
Yep.
local Austin comic. Like, and but and one obviously that identified as being very funny, but there's so many funny
Mhm.
people you never know who's gonna break through. And what I'll
Mhm.
say about
Yeah.
Ralph is like he's just someone who I never saw have a bad set. So
Yeah.
like how can you ignore that guy?
Mhm. For sure.
You know
Well, so
what? I definitely believe that that is available
yeah.
to you as well, and we hope that you do not forget us when you pop up and when you are Spider-Man.
That's
We
right.
would
No,
love
I
very much to
no,
have you back.
I'd love to come back. There's
For
been a lot
sure.
of
But like one more person too that I think could have been bigger than life itself is Dave Attell. I think if he pushed his career, he could have been as big as Louis
he
C.K.
he chooses not to. He chooses
He's
not.
very much a New York comic.
He's
It's
in his own feels, he's
it
just
is what it is.
and
He
I love that. I love
yeah,
him for that because he's being genuine.
yeah,
But it's
yeah,
like,
he has his place in New York and he just lives it
yeah,
up.
I am gonna like, I guess I don't like just throwing shade, especially like to people who obviously like are like could literally impede me if like this. I don't imagine this ever servicing, but like, did you ever see Bumping Mics with him and Jeff Ross, David Tell and Jeff Ross?
I don't think I've
No,
seen that. Mm-mm.
I know what you're talking about, but I've never
Yeah.
seen it.
Yeah, it's a fun, it's like a 3 episode, they go to cities and they kinda, like, roast each other and they, like, high five their mics whenever they do, and it's
Yep.
just like, and Jeff Ross, a lot of people accuse him of kind of building his roast empire off the labor of, like, kind of others and, like, maybe not,
Yeah.
kinda caring more about, like, being cool and looking cool and how he's perceived and, like, maybe his content and stuff like that,
Mhm.
Mhm.
and so, like, to watch Dave Attell run circles around Jeff Ross,
Oh
and
yeah.
Jeff Ross is, like, wearing, like, affliction attire or, like, whatever the equivalent is, and I'm just like and, like, I don't know, there's rumors that, like, he has this, like, teenage companion or whatever that just, like, and he's like, "Well, we don't have sex, she's just a friend." I'm like, "That's even weirder." I'd almost rather but, it's like so it's like once again, it's like once again, Dave goes on stage, it
Yeah.
seems to me, goes on stage and still has that same fear and doesn't
Mhm.
think he looks cool and, still knows he's good, but he's like he's always like, "Well, you
Yeah.
know, what does fate have in store for me? And Jeff Ross is kind of like, you just get the feeling, he goes up there and he's like, I'm Jeff Ross. You love it. I'm roasting you. Let's do
Yeah.
this. And he's like, you're not a DJ with an air horn, like go up there
Right.
and do the fucking jokes. And
Yeah.
so like bumping mics, I want you to watch it just to like
I'm
watch.
checking them for sure.
Yeah, if you love David Tell,
Yeah.
that's like what I
I
think him
love
at his
David Tell.
best and such a microcosm of like their dynamic. And obviously they're friends. Dave would never
Yeah.
say this, but as neutral third party, I'm watching and I'm like, that's what I see.
For sure.
Like they're really friends.
Yeah, and they're
And-
friends. So it's like,
Yeah. And I was gonna say, I'll leave you with one more question.
yeah.
Either this is a question that it could be what's on it or what would be on it, but what's on your writer?
My writer.
Mhm.
Yep.
Forgive my ignorance. What is a writer?
The comedy thing, like what you have the venues.
What is
in the-
required
in
when
the-
your
yeah, the green
services
room.
are being
Oh,
purchased?
like my bio. Usually
Like no, like you have to
No,
have
like-
green. You have to have a bowl full of all
yeah,
green
the green
M&Ms.
M&Ms, my requirements.
Yeah.
This is the sad state of stand-up comedy, obviously,
All
is
right.
that I had to ask that question. No,
All
and
right.
like
No, don't worry. We're prepping you for popping off. We're just getting you ready.
But that's also the thing is so many comics have such low standards. Also because it's like for the most part we just need a microphone and
Yeah.
and a good sound system.
Mhm.
Sometimes they even fuck that up though.
Yeah.
So
You can't have it all, right?
yeah, it's just like you get used to varying qualities of green room,
Mhm.
and
Yeah, for sure.
but and obviously I'm not like a national touring headliner, so it's like usually I'm a comic booked onto a show that either that headliner's on, or it's a show where it's just like kind of the basic agreement is like someone will send you the message on Instagram like everyone's getting paid this, sets are 10 minutes,
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
light at 8 minutes or whatever. So like my writer's usually just like the Instagram message or the booking email or something like that. But if
Okay.
I'm like touring, well, and I like I've featured for my friend who was headlining, and he does like kind of the contracts, the paperwork. So I know like he has a writer of stuff, and like I've been a benefactor of those, but I didn't see the paperwork itself.
Okay, so
So-
here's the bigger question then. When you are big, famous, Dave Chappelle size, yes,
Sure.
when you pop off, what will you want to add to your writer?
What would be on it?
Yeah, I for snacks, I really like dried fruit, like dried mango, raw almonds.
So you're gonna like really be LA about it.
But that's also just but that's what I love.
Sorry, I had to.
No. That's fair. Like I said, I'm just a living, breathing cliche, but I've liked this stuff since I lived in Austin, which also might be an
Yeah.
Austin cliche. But it's like I fucking love like raw food and raw nuts, or like
Yeah.
Can we
raw
clip
almonds
that
and-
content out? I love raw nuts. Can we
good.
Can we isolate that audio?
can we get that as a soundbite?
Slow it down?
There we go.
And then like, man, there was actually one time I was like playing a mascot at an event. It was like something that my agent booked for me back in Austin. This was a number of years ago with a guy who's a Willie Nelson impersonator. And he, in his rider was like a handle of Jack Daniels, and he let me drink from his handle that he had backstage.
Nice.
And so I was like, yeah, like, something, a thing of whiskey or like something there. So like I want my health food, some Celsius if I want it. Depends on what time I'm getting there. I only try to drink a Celsius early in the day right before I work out. And but so like maybe it wouldn't be appropriate there, but yeah, and then filtered water and a protein
Sure.
shake.
I
Something
think
to fill me up.
I think
Yeah.
I would start asking for really weird things. Like I need 3 crow's feet in a jar and like
But
just
that's how
start-
you know that they read it. That's the logic behind it. It's not because
Just-
they
Yeah.
wanted a bunch of brown M&Ms. It's because
Right.
know that they read the contract. Yeah.
Well, and
Yeah.
you want to weird people out a little bit if you can, because that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
You want to build your legend, so that way it sort of
Absolutely.
For
spreads
sure.
in the roadie community. Like, oh my God, this Haleigh chick, she wanted 3 crow's feet. And then you're like, yeah.
And then
You're
she
right.
was like lighting incense and doing some weird chanting. I don't know what was going on.
Right.
I'm
Like
kinda-
And then when you see me get big and successful, you can know that I was
Right.
doing some serious witchcraft.
I was about to say, like it'd be funny to have a pentagram requested in your writer. Like,
Right.
You have to draw me a pentagram of salt or I will not sit in the green room. I need to have my little protective circle. That would be
and think of
hilarious, actually.
the moral dilemma of someone who's like a deeply Christian, who's like working who's working that gig, and they have to draw that pentagram. There's like, what do I?
That right there. There's a fantastic sketch that you also need to write and put up on YouTube for me,
That's
please.
really funny.
You'll
Yeah.
I
probably
love
get
it.
you'll probably get the roadie from Wayne's World too that had to beat the store clerk with his own shoes and steal
Yeah.
all the bread.
I always think about that every time. Like,
Yeah.
a
That's
bloody Bengal tiger. Yeah, I think about that. Or else he wouldn't go on stage.
I love it.
right. We had to
Fantastic.
beat them to death with their own shoes.
So good. Well,
Oh, yeah.
thank you. I do want to wrap up and make sure that you get to your open mic night. So go ahead and plug any of your stuff. Where can people find you? What you have coming up? Let the audience know.
Yeah. You can first of all, find me on Instagram because I always post details to my shows. It's Brian, BRIAN Bogart, BOGART. I have a podcast with my cousin, Guantanamo Bays. It's a Cuban cousin, Kiki. And that's Bays, BAES. Yeah, we're the Guantanamo Bays. We'll already have this show, but yeah, we have our spank at Upright Citizens Brigade tomorrow at 7 p.m. LA time. And if they pick us up, I'll keep you guys updated on when that show's recurring. And come if I'm doing stand up around you, come find me, and I'd love to meet y'all.
Sure.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you so much. Well, I have been Haleigh,
And I've been Johnny.
and that's been Brian,
Brian.
I've been Brian.
and
Thank
this has
you.
been Jonny,
Johnny.
Haleigh,
Haley.
Brian,
Brian.
Day
Day
of.
Oh, fun.
Day of fun, yay!
Yeah.
Thanks so much
Thank
for
you.
listening, y'all. Do check out all the links below in the description where you can find Brian. We're going to share all your stuff below, and check us out. Get on our Patreon, support us so that, we can pop off too, and we can all hang out and have really weird writers.
Sweet.
All right.
Take care.
Right.
guys.
Thanks.
Bye.
Yeah.